Life is sweet. Let it sweep you off your feet.
Hi, it's Allie and Find Your Joy. And I'm grateful that my friend and this amazing artist and storyteller and explorer and adventurer and just an extraordinary. I don't want to just say extraordinary, an extraordinary one who surpasses what we could imagine, is back again for part 3. Lonnie Glass, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled. It's really great. It's great to see you again, Allie.
I know that.
I mean, that's like, for me, that was like, oh, great, I'll get a chance to see Allie. I haven't seen her in years. So this is like a fantastic buzz for me. So thank
Yeah,
you.
me too. It's a beautiful catch up, and I think that the recurring theme in the last 2 episodes, and what I would just what I will guess will continue to happen here, is we talk about finding our joy, and in the midst of the things that happen in our life that are, like for me, we've all had stuff go that didn't go quite how we wanted it to go, but we find a way to make it through. We find a way to have something that gives us life. And I love about you, the thing that I see in you, well, there's so many things that I see in you, but you're an explorer and an adventurer. You take the opportunities. I forget, good luck is really just preparation and opportunity, right? And so you find your ways. You go do the gig. You go into the backwoods and find the luthier. You do these things, and that's part of, I think, what makes someone who chooses not to live in fear. It's an act of courage, really, and I know there's a whole bunch of ways that courage comes out, but not everyone would be traveling and go take that chance to go try this place or that place, go into the back. I mean, you imagine that, and I think that that's a lot to do with it. You have an explorer's heart.
I do, and I've always been like a lover of history. Like that's always been my thing. And as a matter of fact, funnily enough, when I was on tour with Sarah Smith, and we were in Europe, uh, you know, I when I was young, I was 19. Well, actually, I was 19, and I went to Europe. I went away for a year. I went traveling for a year. So, I was in Europe, and I really wanted to go to places like Berlin and Eastern Europe, but you couldn't go. It was impossible to go.
Oh, right.
You were in
Wall.
1970. So
Right.
there's the wall. So there's just no way. But I always thought, oh man, I just have this hankering to see Eastern Europe. And I don't know where that comes from, but in any case, so here we go. Sarah, I'm going to Europe with Sarah. We're in Germany, and we did Germany and the Netherlands, and of course on the itinerary was Berlin. We were going to play in Berlin. I'm going, oh my God, this is going to be something else. Now, being a Jew, Berlin also has
Right.
a connotation that's quite awful,
Right.
historically. But I love history, so what I would do is like I was like the every day I would get up early, 6 or 7 in the morning, and I'd go on a walk, and always find the old parts of the towns. So and I had my phone, and I would just take pictures, and of course, when I traveled in Europe, I was hardly in Germany at all because it was winter when I was there. So I just wanted to beat it out of there, go to Spain or Greece, southern Italy. I didn't want anything to do. I did no clothes for winter.
Right.
So I didn't see much of it. And so I'm going into this small little town, and I walk downtown, and it's like, oh my God, this is like, these buildings are like from the 16th, 17th century. It's like, my God, this is gorgeous. And then I cobbled streets, and then I go to the next town and go, oh my God, this is even more unbelievable. So this is what Europe
I
is
love
really
Europe.
like.
I love that. It's a constant. Oh my gosh. Oh
I
my
know.
gosh.
It's incredible. So then we get to Berlin, and I go on this walkabout for about 7 hours in Berlin, and it was so gorgeous. It was so beautiful and so incredibly powerful, the vibe of it. And of course, there's the negative connotations. But, every town I was in, every city I was in, I would first go and do some research, historical research. And I'd find out what the whole history of the city was, like from the 8th century up till present. And so that I had a context of my viewing. When I was walking around, I wasn't just taking pictures of houses. I knew exactly what this
Oh,
church was, and when it was built and how long it took to build, and the whole history of what the trading nation, what they did, why they became this, and so I really got immersed in it, and I would post every day all my pictures on Facebook, so that everyone back home could follow our tour and see it. And
I
it was
I
great.
was one of them. I
Oh,
was
great.
following all the way,
Because
liking all these pictures.
I'd get people texting me saying, "Hey man, I didn't get any pictures today. What's up?" So it was like hilarious. So I ended up just having this glorious, glorious experience of being the transcriber of the events of our tour. And I just, again, this inspires me when I'm thinking about writing. It just adds to my, an arsenal, if you will, of images, impressions, and it just builds on that. And I find that I had was given this gift, thank you, Sarah Smith, of being able to, basically travel. And oh, by the way, we're going to play tonight.
Yeah.
As opposed to, where's the next gig? It was like, okay, I know we're going to play. I'm thinking, where's the next town?
Yes.
So I can go to this castle or do whatever. And still, we had a rocking great time. But mine was such a life fulfilling experience with Sarah. It was like, yeah, it was. It was a life changing experience for me.
Yes.
And Sarah I will never be able to tell her how much it meant to me. Like what it meant to me was because there was a hiatus of my life, as a musician. And even when I came here, Ali, it was like, it took me a lot of years before I was able to get gigs because, people would always say, hey man, you can play here 7 days a week for free. There are so many for free because there's so many places you could just open mic and little things in the V Lounge. You'd wait for the V Lounge gig to go. But I found it hard for me because I'd come from, a musical life of just touring all the time and playing all the time and rehearsing. And so this was like,
Oh yes, the rehearsing.
it was like, yeah. So it was quite a change for me. Plus, I had a heart attack with the year I came here, the year I got here.
Did you really?
A bloody heart attack. Yeah. It was amazing. I was working at a friend of mine's farm, and it was a very steep incline going up from the pond up to his house. And, I was clearing out the brambles around his pond. And I walked up the hill and I was like, holy Jesus. I was just sweating like a pig. So went home, went to the doctor, and he said, oh man, he said, if you ever get that feeling again, dial 911. So the next day, after the weekend, I went back to work. It was fine. And then walk up that hill again. It was like, oh, God, was like, I drove home, which was stupid, but I drove home and went to the hospital, and they said, yep. Says we've got. They took blood, and they said we've got heart enzyme in your blood. That means you've had a heart attack. So I went, and they put stents in, and the cardiologist said, well, we just basically did plumbing.
Right.
He said your heart has not been affected, so thank goodness. So it was. So they put 4 stents in, and that was what, 12 years ago. It was on right near Christmas. It was December 19th, and then I had to lay low and just be mellow, and but it didn't. I did a lot of power walks, and I kept myself as healthy as I could, and it is what it is. I'm just still kicking.
Yeah.
So but this was the setup of my existence in Victoria. Was, oh great, I got here, left all my music behind, and now I come here and gifted with a heart attack. And then it's just, I had to try and figure out what to do musically, and I'm still working on it, and but I find people, I found, I was doing an open mic, and Bill Holton, the guitar player, was caring for this guy, Dustin, in a wheelchair.
Is that? Yeah, I remember Dustin.
Dustin, yeah, he used to come to the V Lounge, and Bill was his caregiver.
I remember Bill, and I remember Dustin, and somehow, I did not have the two together.
They were
for
connected.
Goodness sakes!
So I'm at this open mic, in comes Dustin and Bill, and so I said, "Hey, Bill, you want to sit in? You want to play?" So Dustin was bringing Dustin so that Dustin could sing his R&B or blues songs, and then Bill played, and I went, oh man,
he's a swell.
We got to work together. So Bill and I co-wrote an album's worth of stuff, and actually some of the stuff that's on the I think my new CD, which is called Water Rising.
Oh, nice.
Which is this blues thing with Daniel Morell. 6 of the tunes are songs that Bill and I co-wrote. And Bill is just a killer. And so this was my first, like, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, okay.
Where is he, by the way? Is he in town still?
He lives, where does he live? He lives Craigflower area. Near the Spiral Cafe.
Yeah.
Off Craigflower.
Is he still playing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
His big thing is he does this looping.
Oh, yes.
So he has a whole like massive pedals. And
Steve Dawson, you remember Zubot and Dawson? Steve Dawson. If you and Steve has played with my brother and stuff like that before. That's how I got to know Steve. But I went one time and saw him playing a single, and he was doing all that and very proficient. That really good at it. I'd love to. Also, let me know next time Bill's playing. I'll go out and see him.
Billy's something else. He's also a gentle soul.
Yes,
he's a lovely guy, and there's just another influence. And because although I sing blues and I like it, but it's not my favorite genre of music. It's just isn't, not in the traditional sense, I should say. I mean, I dig it. There's, but it's like when I learned some guitar and I was working on just developing my skill, I would always try and learn a few new chords, just because the more chords equal melody, right?
Yes.
So if you know more chords, your melody expands, and so as a songster, it just means you can come up with melodies that aren't standard or typical and little twists. So I'll add chords. I could write a blues song, but I'll add some jazzier chords so it doesn't come across like a straight 12-bar blues.
Yes, yes.
And it just becomes a little more, for me, a little more creative and interesting to
Yes.
listen to for my ear. So
Blues is fine, but it's not where I'd want to stay.
yeah. Now, Bill Hold'em is a real bluesy guy, but he's really he has a jazz ability on the guitar. So when he plays, it just doesn't sound typical. So we were able to write, I think, 10 or so, 11 songs together, and that was great. Then I was met this harp player, Jimmy Cecil, and he's great. But he was telling me how he goes to Cambodia every year, Phnom Penh, and Sihanoukville on the ocean every year. So I thought, oh man, I'm going to go. He says there's tons of work there to play. There are clubs everywhere, and he goes from like November till April. So I went, okay, I'm on my way. I'm going to come. So I'm literally ready to go. I'm ready to get my reservation on the flight, and I run into Hank Lionheart.
Oh,
Right? We're just having a chat. And he called me to have a meeting with me. And so I met him at Christie's pub. I met him and we were having a drink, and he said, how would you like to be bass player for Uncle Wiggily?
oh,
Hot Shoes Band. And in my head I'm thinking, yeah, but I'm going to Cambodia. Shit. It was like September, actually. It was September. And I was organizing to go in November. And he said, oh, okay, I'll check it out. So we had a rehearsal and it sounded great. So I ended up working with, he was doing these Christmas shows.
yes.
Yeah, which he did every year, has done every year. So I ended up, I guess I played with Hank. I was Hank's bass player for 3 years. And we toured, and again, a whole different realm. And Hank and I became very close. And Hank is another incredible story. I mean, his story just knocks me out. And we would have just a great time having discussions because, he's even a little older than I.
Yes.
I know people older than I. So it's great.
I actually married them. I officiated their wedding in our yard.
That's right. You were
Kim and Kim.
capable of this.
Yes, I still am. I'm still licensed. And
Wait a minute. No, did you marry Sandy Grant?
I did. Oh my God.
Yes.
Yes, I did. Sorry, you said Sandy, and my mind went to another Sandy because I was just talking to another Sandy this
Sandy
morning.
Grant.
Like, Sandy and Bill. Yes.
I remember I was at the wedding.
Yes, that's right. And Hank and Kim got married right out on our deck on the point, right on the water out here.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And
That's
that's another little sideline. I just love doing weddings, but yes, they're
That's
a wonderful
great.
couple.
Yeah, and they're up in Sydney now. So I'm going to have lunch with them, I think this week or next week, because I haven't seen Hank in a few years. So it's always nice to meet these people who are really influential in your own life. And Hank, he may not think he was influential, but he absolutely is an influence in my life because, he was the consummate blues singer for me. And, and playing because I'm not a blues player. So, I had to learn how to play that genre, not just apply my rock chops to blues. Different game. But it was great. I met so many wonderful people. Paul Wainwright, who was in Wiggly. Well, Paul ended up being the sax player in Thunder Road, my Springsteen thing.
Right.
Well, Stuart McClellan, who I met at the V Lounge first time. And I always used to think, oh man, I'd love to be in a situation playing with Stuart sometime. And so he ended up being one of the guitar players in the Springsteen thing as well. And then Charlie Fox, keyboard giant here.
Yeah.
Same thing at the V Lounge. And we got to hang. And then it was like, hey, Charlie, you want to be? And he was the organist in that band. So, all these ties you meet along the way, but and where does it end up? Well, it ends up that you're all going to play together in a band, and of course that's not together anymore, but they're now
For a time.
musical friends,
Yes.
and part of the community of
Yes.
music. And that I think is probably the greatest thing about music, is that there's a tie that binds us all. It's the music, and it doesn't even matter what genre you play.
No, it doesn't. It sure does not.
I have a guitar player, Andy Bourget, guitar player, who is just a shredder. He's just like Eddie Van Halen. He's just incredible guitar player. And, I met him. One of the first people I ever played with was a rehearsal for a band, and he was the guitar player. And it never went anywhere. It was like a 9:00 at night rehearsal for 3 hours. See you later. Thanks a lot. Nothing ever happened. But you just never know, because I wanted to try and do some ZZ Top stuff here. So I thought, who was that guitar player that I remembered way back? The first thing I did some research, and I found it was Andy Bourget. So I got in touch with him, and he says, "Sure, let's get together." So we did a bunch of gigs together, and it's like you never know what's down the road. The people
Yes.
you ran into years ago and said only a couple of words to, all of a sudden, it's like the seed is planted, right? And the universe is just waiting for the moment.
Yes.
For it to take place.
And we remember, for me, one of the biggest, musicality aside, of course, that's important. I remember how, I'm the person who, if I'm in a restaurant with someone, I am noticing how people treat the servers. It's a huge deal to me. And when I've done any band I've ever been in, or even if I just walk onto stage for a jam or something like that, I notice how do they serve each other? Or how does that work? And so that's another huge thing to me. I would actually probably take a lesser player with a better attitude.
Yeah.
Like I just, because I probably can't change the attitude. They've got to figure that stuff out for themselves. And so that's another thing that I notice around here. I just notice how do other people seem to feel in their presence? How much space do they give them? How kind are they? How much grace do they extend each other? That's a big thing for me.
Absolutely. And speaking of those kinds of things, I was a very aggressive when I was younger.
Right.
I mean, I went through 12 years of very serious therapy, so which was very worthwhile. And but I can laugh about it now. But as an example, I would when I had my ZZ Top thing, our agent was my manager, and they were part of the Feldman agency, but in Toronto. They were called The Agency. Feldman actually became Feldman from The Agency, which was the biggest in Canada at the time. And so, Dave, our manager, he would send out a memo to everyone in the office. Lonnie's coming in.
Oh.
And the entire office would take lunch.
Well, that tells you something. Well, you know what? But here's the thing, right? So you're an intense, passionate perfectionist, right? So we know that about you. And now you come from a place of grace and kindness, but it makes sense.
It's the evolution, it's a spiritual evolution.
I'm the same way. I was not sunshine and roses all my life, right? Like there is a trail of carnage behind me.
Oh, this is great. That's, to me, Allie, that was the beauty of moving from Toronto here, because I thought to myself, no one here knows my story. So they don't know my baggage, right? So it's like tabula rasa, it's like a clean slate.
Yeah,
I
how
can just
beautiful.
I can just start my life over again here. And no one has to know the shite I did along the way.
But you chose to make the change, not
Oh,
just
absolutely.
geographically, right? Like you did the
No,
work, you did that. And so
no,
I
I
like
didn't
that.
shift. I didn't just carry my shite with me to be.
Yes,
I left
that's
it
right.
behind.
That's right.
So, so this is the evolution of soul, this is the evolution of a person. And I can see it. And it's, I'm happier now in my life than I've ever been. And I'm more musical in my life than I've ever been. And more joyous about all of those things. Because as I come down the side of the mountain, on the other side of the mountain, and I'm rolling towards the end of the mountain,
Right.
then it's like, hey, how do you want to end? Right? How do you
Yes.
want to be? So it's like, that's my mantra. My mantra is, I want to end well,
Yes.
and I'm doing it in all my relationship with my wife, and my relationship with my daughter, with my friends. I still backslide sometimes, but
Yeah,
hey,
I get that.
that's,
I get that. Sometimes, I might not even speak it out, but there are times when, the initial thing that rises up in me is 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 not peace or kindness. The initial thing, it touches a very old place
oh
that
yeah,
I'm like, oh, okay, so that's still not very healed
there
right
we
there.
go. Yeah,
Oh, there you are, you
yeah.
nasty bitch.
No.
No.
Well, it's what's not Freud, but Freud's one of Freud's contemporaries was Jung, Carl Jung.
Yes.
So Carl Jung had this notion. Interesting. I had a couple of years with this therapist who was phenomenal.
A
She was
Jungian.
a Jungian, but she was also a shaman. So it
Oh,
was like really, really fascinating. But the Jung talked a lot about the shadow self,
yeah.
and this is that we all have this, right? And this is that thing that rises up, and it's there. It's the darkness, and really, it never goes away. It's never gone. But what the work the work is, therapy wise or spiritually wise, is the conjoining
Mm.
of the two sides of our elemental natures, right? So that we become whole, right?
Yes.
We don't just dispel this, but we amalgamate it into our beings, so it can no longer affect us in the same way.
That's right. So that
And
we can
we,
find a place of peace. Like that's the book that I wrote. Well, when I first started writing, I was a co-author in the first three, right? And then the book, The Art of Healing, and it was all around that. It was the layers and figuring it out. It was the layer after layer of the pain and the unkindness, and then the shame, the
yeah,
shame of all the crap that I'd done. And you have to, but we all have that. But some people, they don't even know they have that. And
no,
and that's why they continue on, or any of us who the longer I stay in that horrible place, the longer I hurt myself and everybody around me.
yeah, absolutely. You have to become aware.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just self-awareness, right? Is the beginning of your internal journey.
Of the healing, right? Some belly button gazing, some good
Yeah,
old
boy, I'm good.
fashioned.
I'm good at that. Yeah, woo.
I am too. I had to be,
Yeah,
because it was that's a whole other, yeah, that's a whole other thing there. Just all of that. And I think that when you're talking about that, when I look at I mean, you've had a beautiful career and
Yeah,
you've worked with these amazing people. And
yeah,
then you're saying, okay, so there was some parts that weren't so pretty about that.
yeah.
And I got some healing, but there was also must have been some pretty good parts all the way through it
Oh,
because
astounding.
you have those friendships.
Yeah, and I've been very fortunate to actually be able to say that, uh, although I wasn't a big star and I didn't sell millions of records, but I had a career. I had a career
Absolutely.
as a musician since the time I was 19 years old. I was a professional musician and still am. So I
Yes.
made my living doing it, which is really not only that, but I've been with my wife for 55 years, which is also an anomaly
It is. It
in
is.
the
Hey,
musical world.
it
That in
is.
itself
And
is like an
I'm
astounding achievement.
exactly. I mean, not there's a whole, I mean, I've married to a person who goes away a lot. There's a thing that's a very specific kind of pressure that it
Yeah,
puts on a relationship.
it's true. But my wife is and has always been so independent and so self-aware. As a matter of fact, I always fell behind, and I always made any spiritual moves that I ever made in my life was usually because I saw my wife moving, and I'm thinking I better catch up.
Yes.
And so she would go first, and I'd follow. And and
That's our story as well. That's it.
so
It's
it was
very
it was so she's ultimately my greatest inspiration for
mm,
me is my lady. Yeah.
yeah. That's that's well, my gosh, this has been an incredible
Whirlwind.
it has. I'm so grateful to spend the time with you. I'm excited to share you with listeners. People will be, I'm sure, very intrigued and interested to listen to the amazing stories. Honestly, like it, we've been chatting now for 2 hours, and I could if I didn't have somewhere to be, I'd be having you here. I just honestly would really welcome another time that we could do this
Yeah,
again
it would be great. Like
because this
once
is
I have a few
fascinating.
tours with Daniel, and I'd love to just get into that section of
Yeah.
my life, which is the life
Yes.
present. And,
Yes. Absolutely.
because that's my sort of focus is where it's the from here on segment.
Well, let's take a couple more minutes and chat about that at least. Like
Okay, well,
let's
Daniel,
yeah.
I ran into at an open mic. This is just how life happens for music in this town.
Yes.
And he's a troubled kid. When I found out that he had been homeless, it was just then he told me the story, then a story about his family and living on the farm and how he was kicked by a cow and was in coma for 3 months.
Oh my
His
gosh.
father used to beat him and burn him, and just horrendous. He's only 33, and he's been out on his own for so long, but he has this innate, and he's broken English, like hard to understand, and he never took a lesson or anything. He's just a natural. He has a natural gift with the harmonica, and like he's really something else to behold. And he knows a lot about the musical properties of scales and things, but his timing is not good. But he reacts totally differently. It's this really organic, raw way that he plays, and it works great with the kind of stories I tell and the songs we do, and because they're never, only a few times are the actual 12-bar blues, and he's just gifted, and he also he's got this van, but he can't get his license because he can pass the driving test, but he's dyslexic. So he can't pass the written test, and they won't accommodate him to help him.
Really?
Yeah, it's really, really bizarre. And he's very conscious of stuff. He's very aware. He's got an unbelievable survival instinct. He knows, look, if he's in the woods, he can survive in the woods. He knows how to light fires, knows how to build stuff. He knows all about mushrooms, plants, herbs, everything that he knows how to take care of himself in the cold. Yeah, because he was on the street. And just a remarkable kid. And he also got me into fishing. So,
Wonderful.
wow. So he takes me out fishing. So it's quite a buzz. Again, he's a gifted kid, and we're getting such great responses. And I just sent out to we did some Canadian Legion gigs, and they were so great that I decided way up, we were up in Tassus and Gold River, way up, and it went over so great. So I thought, okay, here's the business move. So I just emailed literally every Legion in British Columbia, the Yukon, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. And, it's been Christmas, so we're waiting for some replies.
Right. It'll be the new year probably.
I've in the last few days, I've gotten 8 replies. Everyone wants us for gigs. So I thought maybe I'd get 10%. I'd be happy. But it's like literally every single one. Everyone I've sent, no one sent back saying, sorry, we can't. Everyone sends back saying, great, let's get a date. So we're going to our second week of April, we're going over to the eastern part of BC, coming back, and then we have a week going up to the top to Tassus, and then I'm going to go up to the Yukon, which is I wanted to go there, bucket list thing for me.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we're going to go up there and play, and it's like, here's another revival of my early life where all I did was tour, and due to economic circumstances in the music industry, everything is prohibitive to do it anymore.
Yes.
To think you can, not even forget disregarding gas, but just the notion,
Right.
like you can get gigs Friday, Saturday, anywhere. But what are you going to do on Tuesday and Wednesday, when you're in the middle of Saskatchewan?
Yes.
So, now I've got all these legions that want us. And so I'm going to create a project that is going to be a Canadian Legion tour. No clubs, just I want to be represented in the Canadian Legion. And we'll start with British Columbia and the Yukon, and we'll see if we can go all the way across the country just doing legions and create a little documentary of this journey.
This is very interesting. Did you know that David is part of this? You and David must talk. That he's part of what's the initials? Military police ride for blood. Anyway, so it's part of a motorcycle thing, right? For the military police.
Oh.
And he's not a police, but so why I'm saying this is that it's a fundraiser for blind and visually impaired children, and it goes across Canada. And he does the BC ones, and they go to every legion in BC. Well, not every legion, because they can't go to every legion, and then across Canada, this ride every year goes across Canada. So it starts in BC. They travel around for a week or so, and they go to all the legions. Then they go to those who are going to extend it. Then they go to Alberta, and then they travel around all the legions, and then they go to. So it's just. You guys overlap so much. It's just and he's a bass player too, but it's just a lot of overlap with you guys.
Oh man,
that's
buzz.
We must get together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be wonderful. I love that We'll chat. I'd love to chat to you about that.
Yeah,
I have ideas.
absolutely.
I have ideas to pass to you. There
Oh,
we go.
oh, great. I'm open. I'm an open book. I'm ready for anything. I'm
Oh,
ready
that's
for anything. There's my thing. I'm ready. I'm ready for anything.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
open
that's
for every experience possible from here on in.
it is. Well, there's just and there's something about the legions and your passion for songwriting and historical things that just makes me here's this little story I'm going to tell you. It has nothing to do with the legions. Maybe it does. I don't I was thinking about this when you're talking about Europe. When David and I went to Europe, my uncle is buried in the Ravenna War Cemetery in Italy,
Wow.
right? So he and the longer story is that my mom's birth family, she had a brother and a sister, and the parents divorced. The mom took the sister, the father took the brother, and had my mom for a little while, but felt he couldn't keep them all. And she stayed with neighbors for about a year from house to house till she was adopted. Okay, then she saw Uncle Billy, that was his name, and when they were young, and then they wouldn't allow them to adopt them to the people who did, and then she never saw him again. And when she finally did hear from him, of him again, it was a newspaper article where he was posthumously receiving this award for a
Oh,
military medal for bravery in battle. Okay, so that's the backstory. David and I go to Italy in part of our touring around there, and specifically Italy was I wanted to see his grave. And so we flew in, and while we were making our arrangements, we decided this first night we flew into Rome, and we were going to stay in this little town and then go up into Ravenna the next day. And so we stayed in this little town called Rimini, and
Rimini. I know Rimini.
beautiful little town, isn't it just lovely? And it
Yeah,
was in May, so it was before the sun. To them, they think it's cold there. We're, Canadians, we're in shorts
that's
practically.
true. Yeah.
They're all bundled. But it was the one little town that we really spent a lot of time in, and we wandered it, and I took pictures everywhere, and I thought, oh, there's some connection to this town. It's just so interesting to me. And so then the next day we went up to Ravenna. It was interesting. We got lost. Blah blah blah. We finally found it. Then it was the day after is the Israeli sort of like Remembrance Day, and we met this wonderful Israeli guy who had been a general, and and he gave us this beautiful Jewish blessing. It was a beautiful, beautiful day, right? So all of these things occurred, and it was very powerful of us. I'm not trying to make little of it. It was a huge deal for both of us, and for me, I was just I don't know. I was so blown away by it. Then David, I didn't know, had sent away for all my uncle's war records to make something for my mom.
Yeah.
And when we got it, David can go on and show the map. So they battled hard, and it was long, and then they had a month off. Well, where the other platoon went in for a while, and wouldn't you know, it was in what is now Rimini. That's
Oh my
where
God.
my uncle.
Oh, so you had this vibe in that place.
It was just, I never felt connected to any place like I did to
Oh
there.
man, that's a great
It,
story.
isn't it just
Jesus.
amazing? And then where he actually lost his life was just, here's Rimini on the coast here, and Ravenna is up that way and just over this way. And I don't recall the actual land that he died on, but it was all in that area. And so it was, I don't know, I don't even know what made me think of that right now, but it was just, we also have all these stories, right? And we have these things that
Absolutely.
happen, and why do they happen, and how does that work, and how did I go off on my little Twilight Zone music thing here, but there's just a way that we're also connected, and if we stay aware, we will feel There's a way that
Oh,
land holds energy.
oh,
Land holds energy, and
absolutely it
when I
does.
walk on certain places, I'm very open to that, and I feel that, and I know that, and you and I've chatted about before about your experiences energetically going when you were traveling south, and I don't know, there's a whole bunch of conversations we're going to need to have.
Well, hey, this is life.
This
If you
is
want to
life, but
think about
but
it.
so you and I guess I'm not really even sure, other than I have a brain injury and I take rabbit trails easily. But you were talking about Daniel
Yes.
and some of the things that you've noticed with him, and how he just has this way about him. And I'm not sure what I hope when I listen to this back, I will have any idea how I got off into my uncle.
That's
It
okay.
doesn't matter.
No problem. It's a great story. Perfect.
Oh, so one of the things that I'll do is I'll have your contact information, so that when people are listening to these and they will want to get to know you better, and they will want to hear your music, and
Oh,
they will
yeah.
want
I
to,
should give you my site name.
yeah, and I'll have all of that will be in the show
Okay.
notes.
So I'll just email you that.
Yes, we'll get all of that,
Yeah.
and then people will know, and around the time when this comes out, and this I'm guessing it'll be around, I'm not sure, but probably around February or something when these start to come
Great.
out.
Sweet.
That's kind of my guess. I
Yeah.
off the top of
Whatever.
my head, I'm not sure, but then we'll make sure that we have all the dates of where people can see you. And oh,
Oh, yeah.
I know where it was. I oh, thank goodness, there made some sense. It's you traveling doing the legions.
Oh,
That's
the
what made me
Legions.
think
Right.
of it.
That's where this
Is
was. Yeah.
because legionnaires, there's still there are a lot of people who are Legion members are much who may be more aware of how we are actively participating in history at any given moment.
Mm.
And not everyone is always aware of that we're just living our life, but all of us, when my grandkids, when the pandemic started, I said to them, I don't know how long this is going to happen, but what I'm telling you is this, is that you are right now living in something that will be discussed
Living in
and
history.
taught in history.
Absolutely.
This is a
Absolutely.
very specific moment in history, and a lot of people who end up serving overseas and doing the things that they do, I think sometimes are maybe because of that are a little bit more uh, aware. I don't know if that's even the right word. I'm not sure what the word is that would be correct, but how we're living in history. So I can see you being such a gift to people who go to the lead, like they will get you.
Oh, I have no doubt
Yeah,
about it.
you're going to
No,
be a
that's
gift to
that's an
them.
amazing thing, because even like when I do the open mics, we play one which is at the Hoyne Brewery company down on Wharf and no, Herald, the Herald Street.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Herald
okay,
Brewing Company, not Hoyne,
okay.
Herald, and they have an open mic there. It's great. It's a fantastic one, and I was doing it with Daniel, and I was noticing that everyone was young. You know, there's something you notice, right?
When you're not so much
Let me see if
anymore.
I can connect with anyone who's older than 30 here. Uh, but they're young people, and they
Yes.
all come in, and it was just great to hear the response of young folks as I'm talking about something which is which I wouldn't, or things I would say in a song that I wouldn't think really a lot of people would get unless you were of a certain, they're quirky little philosophical traits or names of philosophers that are in my music, some of the songs. And I'd say them, and then I'd hear the audience chuckle, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they know who Schopenhauer is. Like, you know,
Right.
whoever I'm reciting.
Yes.
And I'm going, okay, this is great. You know, I'm on level footing here. So just
Yes.
go. And
They're
then
brilliant. This young
when Daniel
generation.
plays, it's like they just go ballistic. And I'm going, this is perfect.
Yes.
They get him and they're getting me. This is like it's gold. This is
It
a
is.
win-win thing. Because you know, they look at me and they think, wow, here's this old guy and he's up there playing. Like, well,
Right.
they
Yes.
think of that like that he's my grandfather's age and
Right.
he's on stage. So they kind of wig out on that and they think that's cool.
Right.
It's just what I do, but they think of it as like,
Yeah.
man, my grandfather he can barely walk.
Yes. Well,
So
and
it's a
it's
kind of a
true.
neat juxtaposition, the two of us traveling around. It's like, you know, grandpa and grandson.
It's beautiful.
It's kind of a shtick
It is
in and
kind
of
of,
itself, right?
that's
And I
awesome.
even said that. I said, this is Daniel Morel, he's my son. Everyone goes, oh. And I said, not really. It's great.
Well, I can't wait to see. I'll be watching for next time you're playing locally, and
Yeah, I'll let you know. Like,
yeah, I'd love that.
actually, January 5th, I'm playing at the Loft with Daniel. I'm going to be posting that anyway. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, because my memory issues now. It'll be like, oh, forget about it.
No problem.
Well, thank you. This is great, and I just really appreciate you taking this time and sharing these
This has been a
stories.
buzz for me, Ellie. It's
Yeah,
been,
I'm just happy to see you.
I'm happy to be able to tell some of these things. I feel like I'm talking to my therapist. This is great. I haven't had a session in years. This is good.
I've got my new gongs here.
Just invoice me.
Yes, that's right. Well, thank you so much, Lonnie.
Ellie, thank you. Really.
This has just been great. And for everyone listening, thanks so much for coming and spending some time with us today. And yeah, just hearing the treasure that is Lonnie Glass.
Ooh.
That's awesome. Thanks so much again for hanging out with us. This is Allie, and find your joy. Know that you're loved. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found a piece of your joy in this episode, I would love to hear about what came up for you so that we can continue to grow the impact of this show. Thanks again. See you soon. And remember, find your joy.